Hi folks, and welcome back to my video series on building the Bearhawk 5. In this video, I'll go over how to install the main landing gear, shock struts, and tailwheel assembly. With all the upgrades that have been made to the kit recently, it sure would have been nice if Bearhawk would have plugged all the assembly points prior to painting. I've tried hand reaming, Dremel sanding discs, emery cloth, and honestly the easiest thing to do is just to roll up a piece of 150 grit sandpaper and go to town. To date, I've spent about 25% of my build time sanding. After you get done complaining about paint overspray, the next step is to fit the main landing gear legs onto the fuselage with 2 AN6 bolts, washers, and 9 long nuts. Assembling the shock struts was next up in the order. First, you'll need to clean the inside of the struts the best you can. The use of acetone worked well to remove any grime left inside the strut body. Like everything else, my struts came with quite a bit of paint overspray inside the strut body, so I used some sandpaper to remove it the best I could. Part of the hardware package is an O-ring kit that you'll need to assemble the shock struts. I went ahead and used some automatic transmission fluid to lubricate all the O-rings before and after installing them onto the piston and the brass cap. The brass cap has 2 O-rings, one on the exterior and an additional one inside the cap that needs to be installed. At this point, I added a little automatic transmission fluid inside the strut body to assist the piston sliding down the full length of the shaft. A rubber mallet or a little body weight helped to seat the piston in place. Then I placed the brass cap in place and I used a 1/2 inch by 20 fine thread bolt set inside a socket to attempt to compress the spring. This did not work. The socket wasn't deep enough, so I decided to cut off a piece of pipe to add to the depth of the socket and try again. Unfortunately, that also did not work. After messing around, wasting a whole bunch of time, I realized that the issue was the threads in my bolt were not deep enough. I had to go back to the hardware store and bought the same bolt, but a full thread version, and was able to compress the springs to its stop. Once the spring was fully compressed, I installed the heavy-duty snap ring between the top of the cap and the indent inside the strut wall. This task was much easier with the second person. With the snap ring in place, the next step is to fill the strut to the top with automatic transmission fluid, and then to thread on the strut rod ends. You'll need to make sure to add the lock nut before installing the rod ends. Before final assembly, and once the gear is adjusted with the full weight of the airplane, I'll have to go back and add some Loctite red onto the threads to ensure they do not back off. The bottom rod ends attach in the same manner. The shock struts connect to the fuselage near the gasculator and the main gear attachment brackets. The tail wheel and stinger were next up on the chopping block. The stinger did not want to go to its home. I had to sand down inside of the tubing as well as the stinger itself. Additionally, I had to assist the effort with a rubber mallet to encourage compliance. The tail wheel went on much easier. The pre-drilled holes lined up nicely. My boys helped me with the bolts and Loctite around the bolt threads. My little guy helped torque down the bolts to spec before reinserting the stinger for final assembly. This portion of the build was the most enjoyable to date for me. Before I began, I feared the assembly of the shock struts, but it turns out they went on much easier than anticipated. Being able to see the plane on its gear for the first time was an added bonus as well. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.